warroomsports.com. Get that mobile app.
What's up, good people, and welcome to another edition of Inside the War Room, brought to you, of course, by War Room Sports. I'm one of your hosts today. I'm Devin McMillan, and I'm here with my brother, B. Austin. What's up, B?
Oh, what it do, what it is, what it ain't, and all of the above.
All right. We got something for you today. A little bit different. I mean, but it's not different. It's a sports story. It's been out for a few weeks, but we decided to wait, to give our opinions on it, at least on the webcast tip, because this is the type of story that's not really going anywhere, especially since the NFL draft hasn't happened yet. On the heels of Michael Sam's revelation a few weeks ago that he is gay, and he could perhaps be if he gets drafted and makes a team, he could be the first openly gay NFL player. The question that we want to ask today and discuss between ourselves is the NFL ready for a gay player? And B. Austin, you can start it off. What's your thoughts on the situation?
I'm going to be pretty consistent with what I've always said. I don't believe that sexuality has a place in the locker room. While I can certainly understand a position of someone who wants to take on the role of human rights advocate, quote unquote coming out, I just feel as though this brings a lot of attention and a lot of distraction to a league that's already convoluted with things that players and front offices don't want to necessarily deal with outside of football with their players. And so for me, I just think like, okay, Michael Sam, who you sleep with has nothing to do with how effective you are in rushing the passer and breaking down to stop the run. So that's kind of where I am. That's where I am with it. I know that many in the public eye and many of our listeners and viewers may disagree with that position, but I do feel as though he's made it about himself. Even if it's inadvertent and that wasn't his intention, he's now bigger than the team. He's now bigger than the game, and any and everything that has to do with gay rights, homosexuality, LGBT. They're going to come to him for an answer, whether he's having a good game, a bad game, a good season, a bad season, whether he's steep on the bench and doesn't see the field other than special teams, it's going to be about him. And so, also certain franchises, certain cities, certain markets may be a little bit more open to it while others aren't ready. So now it also depends on what market is ready for him versus how he's going to perform and what he can add to a particular team. So that's kind of my take on it initially.
All right, well, I see where you're going with that. I have a slightly different perspective. I agree with some of the points you made. But as far as, sexuality not having anything to do with the locker room, I think it's the type of thing where if that were 100% true, then nobody else, inside of football would even make a big deal about it. I know that the big deal might be made because of the attention that they're going to get. But if you think of it from this perspective, because I didn't before, admittedly, but recently, just sitting down thinking about this, I thought of it from another perspective, because we always ask the question, like, well, why do people have to come out? I don't have to go tell somebody that I'm straight. But if you think about it, and being frank, I don't want to offend anybody, but being gay is not quote unquote normal. So I think it is something where, you have to let people know certain things before they find out on their own. I think the ramifications surrounding him would be even different if it has to come out as a rumor or something like that. We say sexuality has no place in the locker room, but we can tell through Jonathan Martin and Richie Incognito's text that sexuality is discussed. They're not really saying, are you gay, are you straight, but they're talking about women, they're talking about stuff like that. So I see it as better to be upfront about that before those conversations start to happen and he has to be somebody that he's not, lying and trying to live this lifestyle that he's not really living. I don't know. It'll definitely bring, the unwanted attention to a team, but at the same time, I just think it's something that probably had to be done. And I don't think it's him making himself bigger than the team. As a matter of fact, I don't really think, advocacy, I don't think it had anything to do with that. The word that I got is that around the Senior Bowl, rumors had started to swirl, and scouts were saying that he had some quote-unquote off-the-field issues. So I think he decided to come out just to get ahead of the story instead of, like I said, people finding out another way and it causing, just that much of a distraction more. That I don't know. It's a touchy situation, man. No pun intended, but
I definitely hear you. I know at the Senior Bowl, several things came up, and it's really a matter of perspective, and in part common sense as to why his stock has slid so far. Because he at one point was ranked as the number 90th overall player in the draft. He came out of the closet, and now he's like 170. Like day after, he's 170. Now the issue that people have had or have said is, okay, he is definitely a hand in the dirt defensive end. That's where he's played in college. He's also only 250 pounds. Or thereabouts, and they feel as though he doesn't necessarily have the frame to put on much more weight. And as a 4'3" D end at 250, people will exploit his size in the run game. Mm-hmm. So now the question is, can he stand up and play a 3-4 outside linebacker? In which case, he would have to drop into pass coverage a lot more. Well, he hasn't ever done that, and that's something that he would have to do at the next level with a different quality of athlete and player. And so people are saying he has no experience as a stand-up outside linebacker. He's undersized as a DN. His value has to drop reflective of that. But does it have to drop over 70 points or over 60 places, and that's what the scouts are saying, that it's because of that. I think that's a reach, and something, it has to do with his sexuality.
Yeah, I mean, those questions that they're asking about his overall game are legitimate because, a lot of college experts will tell you that he may have feasted off the fact that his whole defense, was pretty good, and what was happening on the other side of the line may have allowed him to shine on his side of the line. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it may be a reach to try to give all the credit to the questions in his game less than 24 hours after he just told everyone he was being gay. I mean, that he's gay. I would think that it's a mixture between both, because maybe you had these questions about his game before, but then he comes out with a bombshell like that, and now you're thinking, okay, with the questions we had about this guy, is he worth the distraction that he's going to bring into this locker room? Not just into this locker room, wherever he's drafted, but the questions about gay players, it's already started, and it's going to continue to flow all around the league. Just like when Jonathan Martin and Richie Incognito had the whole bullying situation, every team was questioned about their locker room culture, about bullying, about stuff like that, and they had nothing to do with this. So imagine, the kind of, questioning and backlash everybody's going to get throughout next season because there's possibly an openly gay player in the NFL. Now, okay, we touched on all the points about, why he may have come out, why his stock may have dropped, things like that. But like we said, the main question here that we're trying to get to the bottom of is the NFL ready for a gay player? Now, from some of the things that I've heard from other players so far, it doesn't. I mean, of course, you're going to hear both sides. But for me, it kind of seems like the weight is falling more on the side that these guys aren't really ready for this yet. They're not ready for, one, the distraction. They're not really ready for what they perceive as them maybe having to change the way they go about things in the locker room. The locker room culture may have to change because they feel, so they won't offend, they might have to act a different way in the locker room. So it's a whole lot of things that go into that, and a lot of players have weighed in on it. From what you've heard so far from players, GMs, and the like, what do you think?
I can tell you I don't think the NFL is ready. I can actually give you tangible evidence, almost tangible evidence that the NFL is not ready. There's a player who put up probably his second best season ever in an 8-year career, 7-year career, 8-year career. And after that season, he couldn't get a job. And it was because of speculations that he was gay. And that's Kerry Rhodes. Allegedly, he was gay. There were some questionable pictures out. There was speculation all around. No one had seen, much of a girlfriend. All of those types of things. Kerry Rhodes was, without a doubt, a top 10, maybe top 5 safety in the NFL coming out of the 2012 season. The picture circulated. Kerry Rhodes is not on an active roster and has not been since. And there's nothing else in his game that we can really talk about, so it has to be that. So I would have to say not only it's beyond the locker room, and it's really even the front office and their interactions and their fingers on the pulse of what goes on in the locker room that would lend me to believe that the NFL is not ready for a gay player. That being said, I believe that Michael Sam will be drafted. I believe that there is a franchise that will take a chance on this, and there's certainly a way to spin the publicity into a positive, because what's the old adage and cliche? No publicity is bad publicity, and so I definitely see it happening.
Yeah, I think that's a done deal. I think it's going to happen as well because, like you said, he can drop as far as can be in the rankings, but it only takes one team. He could be ranked 90th, and then somebody could just step up and draft him 30th. So I don't see that as an issue either. Plus, everybody wants to be the next historical story. Everybody wants to be the next Branch Rickey.
We were the first.
They want to be the first to bring this on their team, a black player and now a gay player and stuff like that. So Terrell Thomas, the cornerback from the New York Giants, he had some interesting comments on whether or not the NFL is ready for a gay player, and I agree with a lot of stuff he's saying. And that, even though this didn't come from, the majority of the players in the NFL, I think his opinions probably represent that. I'm gonna read some of his quotes. He said, "I think society is ready for it and America's ready for it, but I don't think the NFL is. As a player, all you want to know is if you can play. That's on the field, but in the locker room, it's different. There's a lot of talking and joking around, and some guys walk around completely naked all the time, and they might not want to do that anymore. When you add that situation to the mix, I think it's going to make some people uncomfortable." Then he goes on to say, but there's a difference between knowing and not knowing, and that changes a lot of things. You're talking about playing in the NFL, the grind, the brotherhood, the joking that goes along with it. The locker room may not be ready for it because it's the kind of thing that changes everything. So what he said initially is kind of what you said, like, okay, as players, as scouts, as GMs, as coaches, all we care about is what this dude can do in those white lines. Can he help us win? Can he produce? But there's still the dynamic of the locker room, and it's kind of a loose dynamic because nobody in there, at least the people, I'm pretty sure there's plenty of gay NFL players, but these guys are keeping quiet because they don't want that secret to come out. But everybody's in there kind of loose with theirs because they're comfortable in an environment that they've been in their whole career, their whole lives, basically, and they're not thinking about that kind of thing. When he enters into a locker room, now you're thinking about that kind of thing. Like I always tell people, like, a lot of people are really homophobic about stuff like that, but it's like, every gay dude doesn't necessarily want you. 9 times out of 10, he probably doesn't. However, even if that's the case with Michael Sam, that's not going to be the case in everybody's head. Like Terrell said, like, people are going to be afraid to walk around naked because they think this dude is looking at them in the wrong way, and it's just an uncomfortable feeling. So, I like you said, it's going to happen. It's a done deal, in my opinion, because I don't think the NFL and all 32 teams want the publicity of this guy slipping completely out of the draft after he made this announcement. So it's going to happen. and he's probably going to make a team. But that's when the real firestorm is going to start, once he invades that culture in the locker room. So we'll see, man. We'll see.
Goodell, as I like to call him, Roger Goodell, is definitely going to put his best foot forward to protect him and be politically correct. My issue, I guess, one perspective for what Terrell shared, and I've heard this from members of the gay community, both men and women. Who are you to make the assumption that I, as a gay person, want every person that I see of the same sex? I'm not attracted to every, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I definitely feel, where they're coming from with regards and respect to that. That's,
Right.
That's a very narcissistic and it really disrespectful perspective to have.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not like I'm attracted to I'm a straight guy. I'm not attracted to every mud duck that walks down the street.
Right.
I mean, some dudes are, though, so that might be a bad example. Some dudes will hit anything. But that's besides the point. It's interesting that you brought up the whole Roger Goodell thing and what he's going to possibly do to keep everything PC. There's been another rule proposed, not necessarily added yet, but there's a rule proposed that there be an automatic 15-yard penalty for anybody on the field using the quote-unquote N-word. Now, I bring that up because shout out to one of our page members on our Facebook page, Bo Mershon. He's a listener of our podcast as well, so shout out to you. He said that he believes that rule might be a precursor to them making some kind of rule against people saying faggot on the field, since Michael Sam may be coming into the NFL. And I think that actually makes a lot of sense, because when you think about the whole N-word thing, I mean, they said 15-yard penalty for the first offense, ejections for multiple offenses. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, well, that rule would be kind of bogus anyway, because only people going to get punished off that rule are black dudes. There's no white dudes calling, people nigger on the field. You had a Riley Cooper incident, but that wasn't on the field. He didn't think anybody was around to hear that. So that's going to be a rule that's basically going to have black dudes getting penalties for 15 yards. So it does seem like it's some kind of bogus rule that may be covering up for something bigger coming down the pike. And it might possibly be what Bo said about this whole Michael Sam thing.
You opened up a whole nother can of worms. So, my thoughts and position on that rule within the context of this episode of Inside the War Room, brought to you by War Room Sports, WarRoomSportsTV.com. Shameless plug at War Room Sports on Twitter. My perspective is this. I think that at this day and time in 2014, February, the gay rights movement, the LGBTQ special interests, their push for acceptance, their push for rights, their push for human rights, all of those things, they have a lot more wind in their sails and a lot more support than the typical black civil rights movement, and rightfully so, I guess, in some circles. Maybe that's wrong in others, but no one really cares that much about the use of the word nigger, particularly when it's coming out of the mouths of black players. And so it has to be about the use of the word faggot, which is a very derogatory and ignorant and wrong term. I am guilty of using it. I'm guilty of being insensitive to gays. In that regard, it's just a word that has kind of entrenched itself in our culture, and we say it to say something's not cool or to say someone's acting not cool.
Growing up, we said that, and it had nothing about the dude being gay.
Nothing about it. You're not. I don't think you're gay because I call you. Come on, faggot, get out of here. You know what I'm saying? Or or and so both of those words have a certain meaning and a certain context to those that they were originally intended to be used as a slight or insult towards. But nigger is used on the basketball court, it's used on the football field, hell, it's used on the pitch in soccer, it's used, I'm sure, in track and field. Black people have embraced that word, right or wrong, probably wrong.
It's used at the wedding by your best man. That's my
Nick. And it's wrong. It's certainly not a good thing, but it is a thing. And so, why in 2014 does that agenda have so much wind behind its sails? And why all of a sudden would Roger Goodell and the powers that be want to legislate against that? It's a test case.
You know why? Because it makes them, to the people who fall for that, it makes them look like they're concerned about us and what we think, while at the same time they know that the very people that are going to be punished for this are black people. Like we said, we're not justifying the use of the N-word by black people, but the people who are proposing this rule know damn well what they're doing. But that's a little bit, that's off topic. We're going to leave you guys with that. As usual, we want to keep the dialogue going. So first thing we need you to do is to subscribe to the page, so when we drop a video, you can watch the video and give us your opinions. Secondly, we want you to like the video. Click that like button. Thirdly, we want you to go down there in the comment section. Tell us what you think about the topics that we brought forth today. Is the NFL ready for an openly gay player? Let's keep the dialogue going. This has been another episode of Inside the War Room from my man B. Austin. I'm Devin McMillan. Like we always tell you guys, don't accept mediocrity and be steadfast in the war against ignorance.
Yo, as my man Jimmy would say, we will see you chumps on top, but I don't think I'll be able to see you because we'll be all alone by ourselves.
Holla.
Wait, it's the war room with 5 nights at the round table, 5 Philly guys, the first of